Welcome, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. And Navia, and to you and the team, thank you for organising today's event. And I'm just setting up the screen so we can all share in the screen. So please forgive me momentarily while I get the screen set up. But folks, what typically I like to do with these presentations is give a bit of an overview of what we're doing over the next 30, 40 minutes. Is part of my purpose today will be to provide you with some ideas, philosophies, psychology, if you will, on leadership and some management. Also today, I'll give you some tactical and practical techniques and skills that you can add to your toolbox as a manager and an emerging leader as well. So today is all about you. And also with these sessions, I do quite a few of these seminars and webinars and so forth. And I somewhat get challenged by them in the sense that with all the research I do, with all the reading that I do, I keep coming up with the same basic ideas and philosophies around leadership. So in saying that, there's nothing going to be really of new rocket science ideas here. Some of the concepts, some of the ideas, some of the principles I'm going to share with you, I'm sure you've heard them before and potentially multiple times. So look, I make no excuse for that, but I think by sharing some of these ideas, it can reinvigorate some inspiration, some motivation in all of us to strive to be a better person. And I think that's one of my core purposes today, is to instill and hopefully inspire and motivate you to become a better you, because until you become a better you, it's really problematic to become a better leader, because before we can lead others, we've essentially got to be good leaders of our own character and personality and so forth. So essentially that's where we're going to go today. So, and I think towards the end, we'll open it up for discussion and questions, or and we can share some ideas, etc. So I've got a number of slides that I'll go over, and so I encourage you to take notes as we go. And I'd also really highly suggest that as we go through today, I want you to make a commitment with yourself that you're going to take at least one idea or one suggestion or something that might pop into your mind as we've been talking about something else. I want you to make a commitment to put one thing into action as a result of what we talk about today. And towards the end, I'm going to ask you the question, what's the one thing you're going to put into action as a result of you investing some of your valuable time and energy in logging on and sharing an hour with me today. So let's continue. So about today, essentially that's what we've just been talking about. So there will be lots of tools and techniques that I'll share to give you a bit of context of my background. I know Bhavia in the introduction had shared some of my experience. You'll see a family photo there of my family and myself. Growing up, I grew up here in Melbourne, Australia, and didn't really aspire to be anything or do anything exciting. I went to a local school. I didn't do very well at school, went on to secondary school, and very quickly the teachers said to Kevin, look, you're not coping very well with school. I suggest you get out and start, get a job in a factory or something. And I subsequently took their advice and left school very early and started working in a factory. And as some of you would be aware, factory work is not very nice, and to say the least. However, fortunately, I had a good network of friends and family around me. So when I grew up somewhat, I started to think, well, this is really not the life for me. I want a better future. So I took myself back off to night school, bearing in mind I was a little bit older. I finished night school and finished my secondary school, then went on to university and eventually completing an MBA. And during that period, I became inspired, not only through education, but also through learning from others, particularly some of my friends who were doing quite well with education and their careers. And that somewhat inspired me. So I went on a personal journey, if you will, to improve myself. I went looking to further educate myself. I eventually developed the courage to leave the factory and get into the real world of work, or another world of work, and to which I did. And as Bhavya mentioned in the introduction, I've worked in various different industries, in various different jobs. Bhavya did mention I've been a consultant, I've been national manager, etc., various different roles. In addition to that, what Bhavya didn't mention in the introduction was I've been at the bottom on a number of times where I've worked at the bottom and had to claw myself back up. And that's through determination and definitely having that good founding family network around me to support the struggles, because improving oneself to become a leader, you will have setbacks and you will have disappointments, and you'll be scratching your head thinking, what's all this about? But it's worth the journey. It's remarkable. So I share that story just to give you a bit of context in terms of where I'm coming from today, and hopefully we can that's so some of the key themes today is we'll be talking about essentially some of the psychology of leadership. And when we think about it, leadership is primarily a psychology. So we'll talk more about that. Some of the practical and tactical things we'll talk about today is attracting and recruiting the best people, and how to influence people for positive expectations, particularly in a work setting, in a medical work setting particularly. Execution and onboarding is paramount. So we'll be talking about getting good people and making sure those initial stages of engaging with a new employee is really important. Excellence really matters in these situations. And never forget the fact that essentially we are in the people business. In the medical profession, we are in the people business. Whether you're a clinical nurse or doctor, or you're in management or administrative, in an administrative role, we are in the people business, and we need really to develop that psychology, that commitment, that we really need to give a damn about the people that are in our lives, and whether they're a client, patient, a co-worker, a staff member. So a lot of today is going to be around people and improving your interpersonal and people skills. The last bullet point there I've got there is capital investment. And you might think, well, hang on, what's that got to do with health? And I'll share some data with you a little bit later in terms of capital investment when it comes to developing people in terms of education, training, etc. So they're going to be the main themes today. I'll be jumping around a bit, so please forgive me. We're recording today, so you'll be able to refer to it later. Please forgive me. I know I've got a husky voice. I'm just getting over a bad cold, so please forgive me for the voice, but we'll move on. The purpose of today, which I've already outlined, and so let's have a look at the psychology of leadership. And let me put this in as plain language as I possibly can. Folks, it's worth noting on your notes, an author by the name of Warren Bennis wrote a book called On Becoming a Leader, or one of many books that Warren Bennis has written. He writes down some of the key attributes of what a leader is. And Some of them I've listed here and some I've captured from other research. So let's have a look. He's got trust, courage. I'm going to skip the next one. Self-belief and self-image. Somebody that's skillful and knowledgeable, and somebody that's passionate about not only passionate about their industry, but their organization, and their staff, and the organization. So they're passionate and enthusiastic about these things. The reason I paused around the acronym MBWA, which comes from another leadership expert, Tom Peters, and I'll talk more about Tom Peters shortly. But MBWA, if some of you already might know this, stands for Management by Walking About. And what Tom talks about when he refers to the MBWA is the notion of getting out, away from your desk, getting out of the office, walking around the wards, walking around the corridors, seeing what's going on, engaging with your people, having conversations with your people.
Students, everyone?
Yeah, every in college.
And so forth. Now, and I know these are just words. However, I think it's profound that we reflect on some of these words and think about some of the meaning and how they can translate to the real world of work, with the pressures that we have. And I was somewhat struck several years ago. A major nursing organisation in Australia, one of the senior managers of this nursing organisation, district nursing, one of the senior managers was travelling interstate and subsequently took their car from the office out to Melbourne Airport to park it. When this senior manager arrived at Melbourne Airport car park, they noticed one of their branded cars parked in the airport car park. And she thought this was extremely odd and rare that one of the cars should be parked at Melbourne Airport. Now, this senior manager quickly picked up the telephone, telephoned headquarters, and was complaining, what's going on? What's one of our cars doing parked in the long-term car park at Melbourne Airport? No, it shouldn't be here. And so there was some communication going back and forth with headquarters and the senior manager. And eventually the senior manager found out that the car was parked there at Melbourne Airport for quite legitimate reasons. One of the other managers needed the car to travel interstate for a conference. But beside the point there, and I know this is a fairly pessimistic and negative story, but the outcome of this story and the outcome of this senior manager's actions were diminished in terms of trust. I mean, this example went across the organization, and the manager found out that this senior manager was inquiring, what's the car doing out here? So they found out. And so people talk, as you know, in organization. So the question is the behavior of that senior manager appropriate in terms of supporting trust across the organization? And I'd suggest not. That would, if you will, diminish any levels of trust or respect that managers have for the wider group. An interesting story. Courage, self-belief. So let's go. So good leaders, the psychology of leadership, again, people are open to learn. And when we say open to learn, we're talking about not necessarily attending seminars like this or doing formal qualifications, but be open to the notion that I may have made some wrong assumptions. I might be incorrect with my thought process or my ideas. It might be wrong. So be open to learn new ways of looking at things, whether it's a decision you need to make or a problem you need to solve. Be open to learn various aspects of how the issue could be looked at. I mean, as an interesting example of a truck, you know, a semi-trailer truck with a big container on the back of the truck that was going underneath a bridge, a train bridge on the road, and the truck became stuck under the bridge because the truck was too high, the bridge was too low, and it became jammed under the bridge. And after a little while, a crowd of people started to form to watch what was going on. People were they had tow trucks trying to pull the truck from under the bridge, and all sorts of issues were going on. And a young boy was inquiring to what was going on. And one of the workers said, well, they're trying to pull the truck from under the bridge. It got jammed. And the boy said, well, why don't you let down the tires? And the man looked at the boy looked at the man, and the man went over to the guys and said, let's deflate the tires. And subsequently, they deflated the tires, which lowered the truck enough to move from under the truck. So, the notion of learning and being open to learn and new ideas is really, really quite profound in terms of solving problems and so forth. Another, good leaders set personal and career goals, and I make no hesitation of personal goals and also career goals. Set goals in terms of family, social, spiritual, self-development goals, and also career goals as well. You want to create a well-rounded leader in you. Have a future vision, which is paramount, where you see yourself, where you see your organization into the future. This is another attribute or hallmark of a leader. Learn from mistakes, develop mentors and coaches, and without mistake, read. Leaders read, and do some more reading. Read something inspirational, read in your industry, read in your business, read about your policies, procedures, read, develop your vocabulary. There's a direct correlation between a person's vocabulary and their job roles. Folks, I mentioned before about one of the authors that I've been referring to and researching. I've been reading this person's material for some years now. His name is Tom Peters. Please make a note. There's a famous book that he published. I know it's going back several years, but the ideas, philosophy still stand true now. I know when you do read this book, you'll think it's quite dated. However, the concepts of leadership and quality in business is still relevant. So the books are In Search of Excellence, and the other book is Extreme Humanism. Now, Tom Peters has written quite a few books, but I'd suggest start with those two. Have a look at those books to develop yourself. So, folks, in terms of, let's just go back here, in relation to leadership and working in the health sector, one of the key, some of the key aspects, and I'm just going to touch on a couple today, is being able to attract and recruit good people. Not saying experts, and I'm not saying happy go lucky, but I'm just saying attract good people. And so in the next few slides, we're going to talk about some of the aspects about attracting good people. And part of the mechanics around this is, base your interview questions around the main areas and responsibility of the jobs that you're recruiting for, or you might have issues with in your workplace, and whether you're working in an industry where customers are doing a lot of complaints and it is intensive in terms of being at the cold face, then structure your interview questions around how people manage that customer service, and also teamwork. A lot of people, particularly in the health sector, work in close-knitted teams where teamwork is really important. I was struck and reminded at one of our local medical clinics, and the administration people that work there, they work in a relatively small office space there. They're sharing desks, they're sharing chairs, they're sharing computers often, and they're very close together. And if so it's really important that these people get on well and work well together. I'm not suggesting be best friends and be best buddies, but can work well with each other. And that's fundamentally coming from their values and their skills, if you will, in terms of communicating and yes, doing that teamwork, engaging with the team, people that are willing to be flexible. So some of these things as a hirer, as a leader, when looking for people, need to be conscious of some of these things. So early on, I do stress early on, get the compliance matters out of the way. In other words, go through the resume, make sure that they are a registered nurse or they've got their required qualifications, whether it's a certificate 4 in health administration or a diploma in practice management, whatever the compliance is or what the regulations are. Make sure you get those things out of the way so you can start to focus on more of the people type matters and have clear and well-written job descriptions and job profiles and include the terms and conditions of those. So there's some of the more mechanical things. So folks, when we're coming to recruitment, and I won't spend too much more time on recruitment, but I've found successful leaders are successful leaders because they have good people to help and support each other. And it's not about necessarily supporting the leader, but to help each other fit into the team, work well. And that frees up energy and time for the leader to drive the business to the vision where the business is looking to go. So I want you to make a note of these 4 letters, STAR, in search of stars. And I'll go through each of these acronyms for each of these letters to form the acronym STAR. So the S is for situation. And please write this down as we go. S for situation. T for task. A for action. And R for results. So situation, task, action, and results forming the STAR. In your process of attracting good, reliable, loyal people to support your business and to drive it forward, what I am suggesting here is to exercise this as part of your recruitment process. So when interviewing potential candidates for a role, formulate your questions so you can attract a STAR back. Let me explain. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here. Let's hypothetically say that you are managing an aged care facility.
No, Hari.
And you are looking to recruit and hire a nurse, right? Because the existing nurse is moving on and you are hiring a nurse. All right, so getting those compliance matters, make sure that her nursing registration is up to date. His or her nursing registration is up to date, except those compliance matters. So when we're looking at the stars, you would ask an example of a STAR question could be, tell me about a situation where you had to deal with a client that was not happy. So a fairly open-ended question, a fairly standard question you do expect in an interview. Now, as a leader, what you will be looking for is this star notion. Let me give you an example. So the question is, can you give me an example of a client that was not very happy with the service they were receiving? The candidate would respond to a question like that. Well, yes, there was a situation I experienced where the patient was quite frail and frightened and scared. I sat down and asked her a series of questions and sat there by her bed and listened very carefully to some of the situations that she'd been experiencing. So I listened there intently, asking questions and having a conversation with the patient. And it became evident to me after around 15, 20 minutes of listening to the patient that the previous nurse was a bit short and a bit abrupt and rude to her at times, which caused her to feel uncomfortable and stressed about dealing with the nurse. And as a result, I said to her, look, I'm your nurse now, and I can address some of these issues and we can work together. And the result of that was the patient became a lot more relaxed, stopped complaining as much, and we formed a good patient-client, client-nurse relationship. So ideally, you would be, as a leader, listening to these examples, you would hear things such as, you know, I sat with this person 15, 20 minutes. I listened. Now, again, you're getting a sense of the feel of the value of this person, this candidate that's applying for the job. You're listening to these action steps that the person would take. And this would help you as a leader in terms of forming an informed decision on whether this candidate is suitable for the role. Alternatively, how most people would respond to a question like that would be, well, tell me about a situation where one of the patients or clients was not very happy. Yeah, I asked why, and then, yeah, we sorted it out, and yeah, it was all right after that. Well, that's pretty reasonable, isn't it? However, it's not enough detail. As a leader, you want to be probing and ask probing questions about, well, what action did you take to solve the problem? And how long did that take? And what actions and tasks did you do? Oh, I asked questions. Oh, okay. And what happened then? So as a leader, you be ready to ask those open-ended questions, such as the how and what happened then and why. And then, well, what was the result? What was the outcome of that? So be looking for that, to drill in and find good quality people, because what will happen when you become skilled at looking for stars, you'll quickly ascertain whether somebody's just telling you what you want to hear, or somebody has got some genuine value in terms of what they can offer. So a to-do, if in a leadership role, take candidates on a tour of the facility and deliberately, and I use the word deliberately, start a conversation, an informal conversation. Start that informal discussion and ask them some things, their views, opinions on sport, culture, food, books, movie, current affairs, geography, travel. Start a conversation, an informal conversation, because typically a lot of people, when they've left the interview room or the office, they'll relax and let their guard down. So as you take them for a walk around your facility, they'll have their guard down, and you can start an informal discussion, and you can start to get some insight into the value of the person. Remember, we are in the people business, and the people business only. Also, whilst you're on the tour, make a point of introducing the candidate to team members and involve your team members as part of the decision-making process, whether this person would be a good fit into the team, because it is so paramount. I'm sure a lot of you that have had some work experience would realize that when you get a bad egg amongst the team, it can really be toxic and poisonous amongst the team members and really diminish your quality of life when it comes to work. And let's face it, we commit a lot to work, not only the physical hours that we're there present at work, but all the study and education we do to be in a position like that. And you come home and you talk to your partners about your day, and so we invest an enormous amount of energy and time and resources into our work. So we need to have a healthy work environment, a happy, healthy work environment. When I say happy, I don't mean yada, but I mean somewhere where you're comfortable to work and be productive. So important. And as a leader, this is our responsibility. So hiring in plain language, we want to attract, and Tom Peters mentions this in his book, in Extreme Humanism. Once we've got through all the compliance thing, making sure they're qualified and all those legislation, we want people that are basically nice people. We want people that are empathetic, courteous, patient, people that can listen. People got to learn to shut up and listen sometimes. People that are warm and caring, particularly in a medical setting. People that can smile and have a positive disposition about themselves. People that have got the ability to say, yeah, please and thank you, rather than saying she'll be right, mate, or yeah, that's you've been fixed. People that are community minded, maybe memberships or got some involvement in local communities, church groups, those sorts of things, and people that seem to come across as people that are looking to become better people. Just as Tom Peters mentioned, be careful of the fast talking hotshots. So you want to avoid jerks in the environment. So some food for thought. So folks, that hopefully I know I've been banging on over the last couple of slides about hiring good people. However, I think it's paramount in terms of not only through the hiring process, but through the communication process as well, that some of these concepts will help you refine some of your people skills and communication skills to become a better leader. I love this quote. And this quote comes from an author and speaker, Brian Tracy, in his book, The Psychology of Achievement. And the quote is, question skillfully and listen carefully. Now you might think this is a little bit frivolous, but let's have a think about this. Question skillfully. This is talking about, well, partly some of the things we've just been talking about with looking for stars, is think about the questions that you ask before you ask them, and plan the specific words that you are going to use in formulating a question. And once you've listed the specific questions you want to ask, then do the right thing, button up and just listen, and listen carefully to the responses. Just listen. Use the power of silence when you're listening carefully. People will typically explain a lot of things if you have got an empathetic ear where you listen carefully to people. So, Brian Tracy, question skillfully and listen carefully. There are many good books on communication out there that will give you lists of questions that you can use in various different management and leadership environments, whether it's performance management, whether it's public speaking, whether it's hiring and recruitment, whether it's task orientated, patient care orientated question. So question skillfully and listen carefully. Also, do your reference check and look at what areas of improvement the individual needs to make, and get a sense of past performance, and particularly with things like tardiness and so on. However, most of you have got some work experience. We realise some workplaces really, you might not have a great relationship with your line manager, and that might be for various reasons. So people that are recruiting people are aware of this. So if they're speaking to your line manager and perhaps feedback is not so great, then this can also be looked over. To do review and update your job profiles and descriptions and selection criteria. All right. Also good for leaders to conduct an exit interview. So when people are leaving your organization, really important to find out why. And sometimes the reason why might be a fairly unpalatable experience or unpalatable information that you're going to gather from individuals that are potentially unsatisfied or disconnected, or disconnected from the organization. And you need to understand, though, as a leader, you need to understand what's going on in terms of the minds of why people are moving on. Now, in a lot of cases, people move on from job to job for quite legitimate and reasonable reasons. So, and depending on your industry, depending on your organization, the option to leave the door open for a future engagement is always suggested. But that's dependent on your industry, that depends on the circumstances, etc. Mentioned before about, sorry guys, about some data when it comes to capital investment for people. Now, this data has come from the United States of America, and it's been gathered, and I suggest it's fairly consistent and similar to here in Australia, but nevertheless, take that in the spirit that it's meant to be. 5 out of 10 CEOs consider training to be an expense rather than investment, and subsequently, we're talking about people development here. So that's half of the CEOs see training to be an expense rather than an investment. Rather extraordinary. 5 out of 10 CEOs also see training as a necessary evil. So there's training such as compliance training, occupational health and safety, privacy training, bullying and harassment type training that are a compliance training matter. Half of the CEOs see this as a necessary evil. Oh, we've got to do it because the government and it's legal. We've got to do it. 5 out of 10 CEOs see training as a defense rather than offense, and that's pretty consistent with seeing training as let's just throw some training at having people managing customers a little bit better, let's lower customer complaints or patient complaints, rather than the other way, looking at improving the service so you don't get the complaints anyway. And the final one there is 8 out of 10 CEOs in a typical 45-minute tour dimension of the commerce, French for a 45-minute presentation on the organization, would not so much as provide a single mention of training and development for their staff. So they're fairly staggering numbers when it comes to CEOs' attitude when it comes to learning and development and training for people. I love this notion of let's have a think about training, and some of the comments were just let's think about the airline industry for a minute. Could you imagine the airlines not training their pilots properly when they bring out new aircraft or make changes to the aircraft? Think about some of these major airlines. Qantas have got a huge training facility in most cities around Australia, and they spend millions of dollars on equipment, technology, training facilities to keep their pilots well skilled, well trained to successfully drive. Now, why? You've got to ask the question: is why? Yes, you could say, oh, it's about risk management, because you don't want aeroplanes crashing. No, indeed not. But also you want to have good, reliable, safe service to continue that revenue stream. I mean, the amount of time and energy that doctors, nurses, surgeons put into, dentists and so on, put into refining their craft is somewhat staggering. Hey, could you imagine that you're coming in for an operation and you get a doctor, oh yeah, I think I did one of these operations about 2 years ago. I think I remember what to do. Yeah, you cut the vein here, you do this and that. No, you want somebody that is trained to really be able to do this sort of work properly. So, and we can extend this to emergency services, the police, the military, etc. Just think about the money and time that is invested in these services to have our society function as it does. Otherwise, all hell would break out. We have hospitals with lack of training and support and education for all sorts of areas. Medical consultants, as I mentioned, surgeons, practitioners, nurses, the list goes. Administration people are just as important. Customer care people, just important. And I think top-notch training from a leadership's point of view, for soft skills are paramount when it comes to developing your team from a leadership point of view. And I make no excuse for this. We use soft skills in terms of developing their communication skills, their emotional intelligence, self-awareness, negotiation skills, listening techniques, team building, etc. The idea of training can come in various different forms, everything from formal education, such as diplomas, degrees, diplomas and certificates that we have here at the college, right through to higher education. Also, we have this at the college, right? Training also internal, external training, coaching and buddying up systems, etc. Go off to training. So training can form lots of different aspects, if you will. Now, some of the benefits of training and developing people is it reduces staff turnover. It also, people feel more valued and will demonstrate loyalty to the organisation when they're receiving good, regular training. People will go the extra mile, so people will come in a little bit earlier, stay a little bit later, perhaps do some work on the weekend. They'll go the extra mile with their customers. They'll treat them with more courtesy and respect. Also save time and money on attracting recruitment. We talked about recruitment before. So it'll save time because you'll have a lower staff turnover and subsequently less time in terms of recruiting and attracting people. You'll become a workplace of choice. So people will want to come and work for your organisation and work for you as the leader. You'll have more engaged team members and ultimately becoming more productive together, create a sense of culture and teamwork, and reduce sick leave. I like this quote from a nurse, Nurse Christy Watson, who went on to write books and so on. What I thought nursing involved when I started were chemistry, biology, physics, pharmacology, and anatomy. And what I now know to be true of nursing. There's philosophy, psychology, art, ethics, and politics. Interesting. Again, a reminder that we are in the people business. So yes, those technical skills of biology and chemistry are very important. However, when it comes to care, people are people, and we need to keep that foremost in our mind as a leader. Attend your training with your staff and show the passion, because by you engaging in the training and attending, you are engaging with them and you're on show. If you want to take this seriously in terms of developing your people, you need to demonstrate this. You need to attend the training with your team members. Folks, this you'll probably be familiar with the Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin. I love this quote, and I would encourage you to write this down. Train people well enough so they can leave. Treat them well enough so they don't want to. Let's think about this. I've been banging on all morning, all afternoon about developing people and providing training and soft skills. And you're probably thinking, well, that's all right in an ideal world. It costs money and it costs time to do that, to get top-notch training. Well, if you don't, then you're going to have the continuous challenge of a revolving door, people coming and going. So Richard Branson trained people well enough so they can leave. Yes, train them up, to improve their communication skills and their motivation, and sure, might walk into another job pretty easily. However, treat them well enough so they don't want to. And this is the essence of leadership: treating people with courtesy, with respect, so they don't essentially want to leave. Transfer leadership is really essentially a notion of transferring your positive energy and enthusiasm to others. So where do you see yourself in terms of 20%? So down low with your level of positive energy, or up to 80% with your positive energy? Because again, we're in the people business, and it's about you transferring that energy, that positive energy and enthusiasm to your team members. Take an honest look at how you treat your people. How many times a day do you smile with your people? What percentage of the time do you invest in listening to your people? How much? Yeah. So break that down by a percentage of time that you listen. How many times a day do you say, good work, well done, or thank you? And how many emails or texts or other messages do you send out per day, just simply saying thank you for the work that you've done? One of the deepest principles of human nature is the craving to be appreciated. This was written by Dale Carnegie, famous American author, wrote a very famous book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And there's another book I'd suggest you invest your time in reading. So the quote is, the deepest principle of human nature is a craving to be appreciated. Oh yeah, we have cravings to eat some food, but people love to be appreciated. So a simple thank you, a simple please, a simple well done on helping that patient can go a long way, and it doesn't cost you any money. It's not a matter of going out doing training. It's you and the leader to recognize that people love to be appreciated for what they do. So thanks. I'll just finish with these final words, folks, is read something inspirational or educational. Develop your vocabulary by learning a new word each day. Invest 2% of your annual income into self-improvement, whether that's doing professional courses such as the one you're doing, whether it involves membership with professional organizations, subscriptions, courses, etc. Keep fit and healthy. One should eat to live rather than live to eat. Be true to your values and treat others how you would like to treat themselves. So, folks, that's the completion in terms of the slides today. So, again, I want to come back to that question I started with: is what was the one thing from today that you're going to take away and put into action? So I want you to reflect on that and make a commitment to yourself to improve yourself. The notion of why leadership is important in the organization. And hopefully I've addressed some of those issues of why leadership is so important when it comes to working in a health setting, in a medical clinic or a small or large hospital. Yes.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for this wonderful workshop and highlighting the importance of leadership, importance of open communication, skillful communication, by rightly pointing out on the quote or by Brian Tracy, that is question skillfully and listen carefully, the STAR analysis about the situation, task, action, and result. So we have definitely, behalf of everyone, I think we will be having a good takeaway of information and knowledge from this session. However, if any one of you have any queries or questions, please feel free to ask Kevin, and I will be stopping the recording of the sessions now. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Barbara. Thanks everybody for your participation. Bye.